Hello everybody, whether you're watching this now or later. I'm just going to share this in Discord. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about, and I'm sorry I haven't been on for a while. The problem is that doing these videos takes quite a long time, and I've been working on Amber's place on doing. Sorry, it's very hot here. I'm doing some horoscopes, and so I haven't been working on Mel's table talk at all. But there's a lot I want to say. There's a lot I wanted to talk about, and finding time to do that as well is challenging. So what I've decided to do is I'm just going to, when I feel what I want to talk about something, I'm going to come on and I'm going to talk about it. And I'm going to be doing things at the same time because I'm not good about sitting down for a long period of time. I suffer various issues with sitting for too long, and I need to keep active, and there's things I need to do at home. So there may be some noise in the background while I'm doing other things while talking to you. I'm streaming live from my mobile, and I'm not sure how to see chat on here. Let me see if I turn the phone that way. No, I'm not sure how I get to see chat. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about today is what being awake means. While I'm talking to you, I'm going to turn my laptop on. Pop you there. What does being awake mean? This word is used so much. You hear people saying, I am awake. You hear people accusing others of being asleep. And one person will consider somebody awake in some areas but asleep in other areas. And to be honest with you, it's a very arbitrary label. It doesn't really mean anything. A question I would ask is anybody ever fully awake? Because simply being alive means you're asleep. Because you're not who you really are. You're in a physical body. If you believe we have a soul or a consciousness that exists independently of our body, and most people do, then you have to accept that being alive in and of itself means that you are asleep. There are many programs and in this lifetime, and these are dependent on our various cultures, our religious beliefs, our ideas, and what we're taught when we're young and through our lifetimes by our parents, by our education systems, by the media, by government. And believing in any of these contrary to evidence means that you're asleep in that area, but you could be awake in other areas. So, to be honest, it's a bit of a ridiculous label. And what I don't like about it, I understand why people use it, because we seem to have this need to label ourselves. I am female, I am a woman, I am British. It's all arbitrary labels. I am awake. But the problem is labels are so often used as weapons. They're used to hurt. They're used to divide people, to inflict pain on others. And you see that a lot in the self-labelled awake communities. You see it as well in the asleep communities. You see it everywhere. Where this seems to be an endemic need of people to inflict hurt and pain on others, to put others down, to ridicule them. Whether they're doing it in a jokey way or with anger is irrelevant. They're still trying to put somebody else down. They're still trying to make somebody else feel worse than they did before. And this is indicative of an issue in themselves. If you find yourself ever doing this, then my advice is to proverbially look in the mirror at yourself. Why do you feel the need to do this? What is it inside of you that needs to put somebody else down so that you feel better? It's bullying, plain and simple. And we're all been guilty of it. We are all guilty of it. The only way you can stop that is to start asking yourself the question, why? Okay, so I'm on YouTube on my laptop, so I'm going to go to this video so I can see chat if anyone comes in. Pause it. Okay, so I can see chat now. So am I awake? Are you awake? I would prefer to use we're all in the process of awakening. That going through life itself is a process of awakening. Many of us are waking up to certain programs. We're waking up to the program of the monetary system. Of the fact that government doesn't necessarily have our best interests at heart as individuals. We're waking up to the programs of the various religions and religious beliefs, that they are not all the truth. We are waking up to the origins of our species and the implications of that. We are waking up to the fact that much of the information in the mainstream is downright incorrect, if not deliberately so. The Red Pill Adage is used a lot because it relates to the Matrix films, and the Matrix films taught us a lot. This is why the Matrix films are such good films, because they make you think. They make you look at your life and see hidden truths that you never saw before. They make you look at yourself. They make you look at others around you. Well, maybe don't make you, they encourage you to do so. You don't have to. And that's what distinguishes, in my opinion, a really good book to one that is just frivolous pleasure, one that makes you reconsider and think about your own life in a different light. Star Trek was brilliant for this. It always dealt with the big issues, made you reconsider and think about what was going on in our cultures at the time and form a different opinion. I've been watching some short YouTube videos recently called The Middle Ground, and they're similar because they bring together, hey Sika, great to see you. How are you? I hope you're good. The Middle Ground videos bring together opposing views on a topic and present questions and statements to them and ask them to say whether they agree with that statement or disagree, and then to talk about why. And it's brilliant because it encourages people who may never before have talked to discuss their thoughts and realise what they have in common with the opposing viewpoint. They're concentrating on what they have in common rather than what divides them. Yeah, you're up early, I think. Seeker. So, if you are aware of, for example, the corruption and the basis of fiat monetary systems, for example, then you could, in my opinion, legitimately say, I am awake. If you are aware of the issues with the religious dogma, you could say, I am awake. If you are aware of the issues pertaining to the scientific dogma, you could say, I am awake. Nobody has the right to tell you that you're not awake, because anyone who does that is asleep themselves. And there's a reason I'm saying this, which I'd just like to talk about now. When you start to wake up on any front, no matter what aspect you're first waking up to, and for many people that began after 9/11, you go through the exact same stages emotionally that you would go through if you lost a loved one. You are grieving. You go through the same grief stages. Now, I'm just going to talk about these stages, because what I would like to happen is for those of us and for people watching this who are awakening, who are going through this waking up process, you should be able to identify in yourself where you are in this process. And that should help you, inform you why you are feeling the way you're feeling. And by understanding why you are feeling the way you're feeling, you can better understand why you are behaving the way you're behaving, to yourself and to others around you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through each stage in turn, and then talk about each stage in turn. So the 5 stages of grief, and I'm reading this from a website, grief.com. The 5 stages of grief. The first stage of grief. And remember, this is grief because your reality has just been taken away from you. What you believe to be true, whether you're waking up to one thing at the moment or lots of things, it has been taken away from you. You have lost something that you loved. You loved it because you believed it before. You were comfortable, you felt secure, you understood who you were and your place in the world, and you felt you understood the world, how it worked. And that's just gone. It's like losing a marriage, losing a home, losing a dream, losing a loved one, a pet, a person. It's all the same. You go through the same stages. So the first stage of grief is denial. Denial is the first of the 5 stages of grief. It helps us to survive the loss. In this stage, the world becomes meaningless and overwhelming. Life makes no sense. We are in a state of shock and denial. We go numb. We wonder how we can go on, if we can go on, why we should go on. We try to find a way to simply get through each day. Denial and shock helps us to cope and make survival possible. Denial helps us to pace our feelings of grief. There is a grace in denial. It is nature's way of letting in only as much as we can handle. As you accept the reality of the loss and start to ask yourself questions, you are unknowingly beginning the healing process. You are becoming stronger, and the denial is beginning to fade. But as you proceed, all the feelings you are denying begin to surface. Now, I went through this stage with a specific aspect of my awakening, which was when I discovered flat earth theory. And again, I'd like to question why I giggled or sniggered when I said that. And the reason is because I am affected by how others view people who lend credence to the flat earth theory. That's an emotional trigger for me that I need to work on. Why am I concerned about what other people think? There is truth in it. I'm not saying the flat earth theory is correct, but there is truth in it. And it is always good to ask questions. Because if you don't ask questions when there is evidence that is contrary to the mainstream idea, then you are asleep. Because you're acting in a dogmatic way. So asking questions is always good. Even if the questions simply confirm what you previously believed to be true, that's fine. It's okay to ask questions. It is a good thing to ask questions. It's a good thing to challenge dogma. And there are many things in the flat earth theory that raise valid questions about the model of the earth that we've been raised to believe in. But I went through this denial stage with the flat earth theory because I didn't go through it when I found out about the Mandela effect. In fact, I didn't really go through it in, at least in a discernible way, I don't think, or I skipped right over it very quickly with the other aspects. So I must have gone through it with each aspect, but it wasn't an issue, it wasn't discernible, it wasn't something that I felt greatly affected me. But it certainly did with that. I remember when I resisted watching the videos for a while. And in fact, the flat earth theory seemed to be a Mandela effect for me. Whether it was a Mandela effect or not, or simply because I just never came across it. But it was after I found out about the Mandela effect, I started seeing videos about flat earth theory. And at first I never watched any of them. I thought, how ridiculous. I was asleep. And eventually I thought, okay, they kept coming up. I thought, I'm going to watch one. Let's see what this is all about, because I'll be able to put it out of my mind then. Once I've watched it, I'll know it's ridiculous. I'll be able to put it to bed. That's great. That didn't happen. I watched a documentary presenting the main evidence against the global earth model, and it was shocking in the extreme. I remember for about 2 days I just kept thinking in my head over and over again, oh my god, I can't believe the earth's flat. Oh my god, I can't believe the earth's flat. It was so shocking. I couldn't think of anything else, and I wanted to deny it. I was trying to find a way to deny it. I couldn't believe it could be true or have any truth in it, because of what it meant, what it would signify, what it would mean in terms of my religious beliefs, my spiritual beliefs, my trust in science in general. And I do trust science. I did trust science. I've got a degree in biological sciences. I love science. And I still love science. However, I do recognise that science is as dogmatic as religion is, unfortunately. And there's a lot of corruption in it, just like religion. They're very similar. And so I definitely went through that stage. I remember it vividly with the flat earth theory. But many people go through this stage on many aspects. Many people who first become aware of the Mandela effect go through that stage as well, very in a deep level. I've spoken to people who say they just laid on the sofa for 2 days watching videos because they couldn't believe it. They were trying to deny it, and they couldn't. And of course, once you start seeing it in your physical reality, in your personal reality, then it's undeniable. You can't deny it anymore. And I've seen countless examples of the Mandela effect in my physical reality. It's undeniable. It's happening. The only question is, what is it and why is it happening? So denial is, for me, one of the less problematic stages of the grieving process, because you tend to isolate yourself. You're just denying it. You're in your own head denying it, and it's not necessarily causing issues in your behaviour towards others in a similar community at this time. Most people, I I believe, or from what I've experienced, get through the denial stage very quickly. You know, from straight away they never really denied it in the first place, to it can take, you know, a few days, and then they okay, I'm not denying this anymore. They may still resist aspects of it, theories about it, but they at that point the denial was gone. The second stage of grief is anger. Anger is a necessary stage of the healing process. Be willing to feel your anger, even though it may seem endless. The more you truly feel it, the more it will begin to dissipate and the more you will heal. There are many other emotions under the anger, and you will get to them in time, but anger is the emotion we are most used to managing. The truth is that anger has no limits. It can extend not only to your friends, the doctors, your family, yourself and your loved one who died, but also to God. You may ask, where is God in this? Underneath anger is pain, your pain. It is natural to feel deserted and abandoned, and we live in a society that fears anger. Anger is strength, and it can be an anchor, giving temporary structure to the nothingness of loss. At first, grief feels like being lost at sea, no connection to anything. Then you get angry at someone. Maybe a person who didn't attend the funeral, maybe a person who isn't around, maybe a person who is different now that your loved one has died. Suddenly, you have a structure, your anger toward them. The anger becomes a bridge over the open sea, a connection from you to them. It is something to hold on to, and a connection made from the strength of anger feels better than nothing. We usually know more about suppressing anger than feeling it. The anger is just another indication of the intensity of your love. Now this one is, I want to say a word, but which has a different connotation in British to American. And it's B-U-G-G-E-R. This one is a, over here it's just, it doesn't mean the same as it does in America. So I'm not going to say it, because I understand it has different connotations. But this one is a sod, as another saying. It is a sod. Again, it's a stage everybody goes through. And many people skip denial, go straight to anger. And it is, as it says, it is a normal and useful and necessary stage to go through. What I find interesting about this is where it says, be willing to feel your anger, even though it may seem endless. And we usually know more about suppressing anger than feeling it. Now that is very true. In our society, in Western societies, I don't know about Eastern societies in this, but in Western societies I know, and especially in British society, anger is a no-no. It's we are brought up, we are trained to suppress feelings such as anger. They're undesirable. They're destructive. Hey Raleigh, I'm reading the 5 stages of grief and relating it to the awakening process. So I've talked about denial. The denial was the first stage, and now we're on to anger. So with any emotion, it is unhealthy to suppress it. Because if you suppress it, you're not going to deal with it. It's going to be there all the time. And it's going to come out in a chaotic fashion at future events in your life. Events that are completely unrelated to the original event. But they trigger it. It's like you've locked it behind a door in your heart. But the door isn't locked. And it doesn't take much for the anger to burst through the door and come out. Yeah, Sika, I agree. Sika says, I think everyone I tried... Oh, it's gone, hold on. I think everyone I tried watching about Flat Earth was in the anger stage. I couldn't stay and listen. I absolutely agree. When you're in the later stages of grief, the anger stage is really hard to listen to and be around, because you really do feel it, and it's very unpleasant. The trick with anger is to allow yourself to feel it, but with mindfulness. So what you need to do, if you feel that you yourself are in this anger stage, whether that's with flat earth, whether it's with Mandela effect, whether it's with the corruption in government, whether it's with religion, science, whatever stage it is, whatever aspect you're most angry about, the trick is to allow yourself to feel the anger without allowing the anger to dominate your behavior. So it's almost like you take a step out of yourself and you're observing yourself from outside. So, for example, when a 2-year-old throws a tantrum, what do? You're not going to be able to ask them to suppress the anger. It's there. And if you do manage to do that, that's not healthy. We know intuitively that it's best to let them express their anger. What we do is we arrange the environment so they are in a safe space where they can express that anger, because they have to be able to get it out. But they have to be able to do it in a safe and managed fashion that's not going to cause harm to themselves or anybody else around them. And this is how you have to treat yourself, because your angry self is like your 2-year-old self. It is a part of you that can cause chaos and destruction and harm to yourself and others. And by causing harm to others, you are also causing harm to yourself, which is another topic. However, when you don't conceptualize that angry version of yourself as being separate from yourself, or an aspect of yourself that you can control, you allow the anger to completely dominate your behavior. Suddenly your voice becomes angry, your body language is angry, you start treating others with disrespect, causing harm to others, because it makes you feel better for somebody else to be angry as well, because you're venting your anger in their direction. And on an energetic level, you are passing off this anger to somebody else, and that is like a boiling kettle, and you're allowing steam to come out to vent it. But that just makes them angry. So it spreads. So the trick with anger is to manage it, to understand that it's okay that you're feeling this. It's perfectly normal to feel this. But it is not truth. It is not the end. It is a stage in the grieving process that it is up to you. Part of your awakening process is to wake up to who and what you are and your abilities to manage yourself. If you're not able to do that right now, then you haven't got to that stage, and that's something you need to work on. You need to understand that you can manage this, that you don't need to allow your angry self to take over, to dominate you. You also need to look at where that anger is coming from. What does it mean? And I like what it said here, that the anger is just another indication of the intensity of your love. So if you're a flat earther, for example, and you're angry about it, then that is an indication of your previous love, intensity of your love for the globe earth model. Because you're furious that you were deceived. You are furious that the earth is not the shape you've always believed it to be. And every ramification of that in your life. You loved it. And that's where you need to get back to. You need to let go of your love for a shape of the earth and just love the earth, regardless of its shape. You need to understand where this anger is coming from. What emotional seat has been triggered within you? What part or aspect of your loving nature has now been twisted into anger, expressing this anger? You can learn a lot about yourself by analysing yourself. It may be helpful for you to find less destructive means for you to express this anger, for you to get it out. so that you're not going to harm yourself and others around you. Perhaps it's playing a sport, going for a run, going for a swim. Something physical that you can vent this anger. So that will help you to vent that anger off without venting it verbally or behaviourally at other people, which is just going to cause harm and destruction. The anger stage, the problem with it is it's very hard to get through it, and it can last for a very long time. As Sika said, and I agree, in the last just over 2 years of my awakening process, I have seen people stuck in this anger stage for years. They are just stuck there. They can't seem to get through this anger stage. And I would suggest that if you recognize this as being yourself, that you are deliberately, subconsciously or spiritually, whatever you want to say, you are deliberately holding on to that anger because it has become like a comfort blanket to you. Perhaps you feel you should be angry, so therefore you are angry. Perhaps you are disturbed by the thought of letting go of that anger because you don't know what comes next. You're worried about what comes next. You are resistant to change in yourself. The anger could also be covering up traumas that you need to deal with, that you know are going to be uncovered if you let go of the anger. Past hurts, past emotional pain. For a variety of reasons, but you are holding on to that anger deliberately. And it's time for you now, I would suggest, to let it go, to express it and let it go, and to look at what it is covering underneath and heal that to prevent the anger coming back. Anger is bad for your health. If you know anything about the studies on the effect of consciousness on physical matter, you would understand this. You will understand this. You will understand the effects that that anger is having on your body, on your cells, on your health, as well as everybody around you. For example, you have a spouse and children, and you have this chronic anger inside. You're angry at the world, you're angry at God, you're angry at NASA, you're angry at government, you're angry at the Illuminati, you're angry at Freemasonry, you're angry at other New Ages, you're angry, you're just angry. Whether you're feeling it overwhelmingly at the time or not, that anger is still inside. It's still there. Now, if you're living with other people, then, and you know anything about the effect of your thoughts and consciousness, your emotions on physical matter around you, then just imagine the effect your anger is having on those that you love. Because every time you have a drink or you eat together, you are affecting, in a negative and destructive and harmful way, the molecular structure itself of the water within the food and drink that your loved ones are consuming. You are having a negative impact on their physical health because you are refusing to deal with your anger. So perhaps that would be the thing, the key that will make you stop and reconsider. Okay, so let's go back to chat. Either of you guys, any of you guys got any questions? Raleigh says, be angry, but sin not. Jesus said that. Yes, so feel your anger. It's a legitimate feeling you have every right to feel. But don't sin by expressing that in a harmful way into the world around you. Okay, so the next stage. Now this stage is bargaining. Okay, before a loss, it seems like you will do anything if only your loved one would be spared. Please God, you bargain. I will never be angry at my wife again if you'll just let her live. After a loss, bargaining may take the form of a temporary truce. What if I devote the rest of my life to helping others? Then can I wake up and realise this has all been a bad dream? We become lost in a maze of if only or what if statements. We want life returned to what it was. We want our loved one restored. We wanted to go back in time, find the tumour sooner, recognise the illness more quickly, stop the incident from happening, the accident from happening. If only, if only, if only. Guilt is often bargaining's companion. The if onlys cause us to find fault in ourselves and what we think we could have done differently. We may even bargain with the pain. We will do anything not to feel the pain of this loss. We remain in the past, trying to negotiate our way out of the hurt. People often think of the stages as lasting weeks or months. They forget that the stages are responses to feelings that can last for minutes or hours as we flip in and out of one and then another. We do not enter and leave each individual stage in a linear fashion. We may feel one, then another, and back again to the first one. Now this, in the awakening process, is also a very common stage, this bargaining stage. And it's the stage where suddenly people start to feel that they have to do something good for the world. They have to help humanity. They have to get out there. They have to shout from the rooftops. They have to do whatever they can to feel that they're helping other people wake up, to change the world, to make it a better place. And that's not a bad aspiration at all. It's the problem is why you are feeling that and how you are feeling that and how you are expressing that. If you are in this bargaining stage of the grieving process, then this is simply a stage of the grieving process. If your intent to do that is to save yourself or to save your loved ones, for example, you find this a lot in the religious communities, that there is this concept, or some religious communities, there's this concept that there are those who are going to be saved and those who are not. And people desperately want to be in the I am saved camp. So they'll go around doing good deeds. They'll try to help people. They'll try to be a good person, not because they truly believe, regardless, that that's the way to be, but because they want to save themselves and to save others. That is kind of like the bargaining stage. And you see this in the awakening process as well. And that is stemming from fear. Fear of not being in the in crowd. Fear of not being saved. Fear of not being one of the, I forget the word that's used in religious dogma, but fear for not being the awakened ones. Fear, fear and fear. I would question. There's another phraseology used here that is service to self or service to others. And in the awakened community, you see this used all the time. I'm service to others. I'm more service to others than service to self. Because again, there is this concept being portrayed that unless you are service to others, more than your service to self, you're not going to be saved. Or the earth's not going to be saved. Or humanity's not going to be saved, or we're not going to ascend, we're not going to get to the 5D earth, we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. Again, it's fear, fear, fear and fear. And people then are acting as service to others, not because they really want to or feel that's the best way to be, but because they're doing it out of fear. And I would argue that that's not service to others, that's service to self. You're doing a good deed because you want to save yourself. That's not being service to others. That's service to yourself. So the intent is so important behind your actions and emotions. And it's your intent that's the only real truth. It's the intent that only really matters at the end of the day. But in this awakening process, after you get over the anger, suddenly you want to do. You want help. You want to change the world because you're living in fear. Because you're terrified. You don't want to see your loved ones die in some cataclysm. You don't want you to die in some cataclysm. You don't want the earth to be destroyed. You don't want the whatever to come and save some people, and you be left behind, or your loved ones be left behind. So you're desperately trying to do what you can to save yourself and others you love. But you're doing it out of fear. You're not doing it out of love. And that's a problem. Because you're deceiving yourself. And once you start to realise that, then you go through another awakening process again, because suddenly you start to look at all of these narratives that are out there in a new light. You start to see that they also are indoctrination and dogma, that you were asleep to that before and now you're waking up to it. So you start, and those aspects, you start the grieving process again. First of all, there's a denial. No, I don't want to believe that that's false. That feels right, that resonates. I understand it. I don't want to feel that they've been deceiving me. I'm awake. I can't be deceived again. And then you get through the denial stage, and then suddenly you're angry at them now. Oh, these New Agers in that camp of New Age philosophy, they're just deceiving people. Don't listen to them. You're angry at them because they deceived you again. But remember, you're not really angry at them. You're angry at yourself for being deceived. You're not angry at anybody else. You think you are. You're acting like you are because that feels better than actually looking in a mirror and saying, you fool. So you go through that stage again, and then you get to the bargaining stage. And then you want to do good again, and you're finding other outlets, and then you go through the process over and over and over again. You keep going, as it says, you go back and forth, back and forth. If you really wanted to save the earth and save everyone in it, you would forgive everybody. You would love everybody regardless of their behaviour and what they've done, because you'd recognise that we're all spiritual souls. We're souls living in this life, in this dream. And we're all victims of dogma. We're all victims of brainwashing. We're all victims of programs. And we're all acting out those programs. Everybody's a victim. The murderer, the paedophile, the genocidal dictator, they are victims as well as you. And if you really understood that, you couldn't be angry and hateful at them, because you'd understand that you're being angry and hateful at a 2-year-old. You're not being angry and hateful. You understand that that's what we all are. We're basically like 2-year-olds. We're just waking up. We're growing up. The adult version of ourselves is attached to us, but it's not who you are. There are aspects of it that can help guide you like a parent, but you're like a 2-year-old, and so are they. You wouldn't hate the 8-year-old who's bullying your child in school. You might be angry, but you're not going to hate them. You're not going to want to kill them, because they're a child, and you understand that. But we're all children. Hitler was a child. Everybody is a child. We're all victims. Yes, Seeker. Seeker says, yes, the concept of service to self versus service to others was well explained in the Ra material. I love those books too. Now, I do need to read all those. I've read a bit of it and I got distracted. I've never actually read it all. And every time someone mentions it, I feel I must read that. I will get around to doing that. Hey, Rally. Oh, thank you. Hey, Mel, you are an angel. I will watch for your live chat streams, okay? Love you, love. Come join us in the M Effect live chats. Okay, I'm not sure where that is, but thank you very much. Perhaps Rally, are you in Discord? Are you in Flame? Bear with me while I make a cup of tea. You definitely want to read the Ra material, Rally. It's very informative from what I know of it. You learn a lot from it. Thank you, Rally. I'm not that young though. Okay, so we were talking about I was talking, sorry. I hate it when YouTubers say we were talking. I think we weren't talking, you were talking. Okay, so I was talking about the bargaining stage and how that relates to the awakening process. And remember, I've gone through all these stages. So I vividly remember the bargaining stage as well. My bargaining stage was getting into Ubuntu contributionism. And I learned all about, and I still support it, the idea, the philosophy, the concepts. I don't necessarily support Ubuntu contributionism as an organisation, but I support the concepts. And when I first found out about it, I wouldn't shut up about it. I was like, Ubuntu contributionism all the time because I was so excited. It was like, this is the answer. Yes, we're going to save the world. And I was in the bargaining stage and I didn't know it, you see. So it takes time for you to get through that. And the best people you can have in your life are the people who have gone through these stages and they recognise them in you. They may not call it by the same name, but they understand and they allow you to go through these stages without criticising you, without putting you down, without making you feel bad about yourself. They basically spiritually take your hand and are helping you while you're going through these stages. They provide a scaffold for you to go through and learn. And I was very fortunate because I got in contact very early with a group of people, some of whom were instrumental for me to go through these stages naturally, and without them saying to me, you're in a stage, but they allowed me and supported me while I was going through the stages so that I didn't get stuck in the stage. What they did do at times was say, stop and think. When they recognised I may have been cycling back into earlier stages, and at first I resisted that. I was like, who does this person think they are? But later on, you get to understand and see it in a different light. And, you know, I will always be grateful for that support and help. And I think the people who are responsible know who they are. And I will always be grateful for that. And I will never forget it. And I will try to do the same for others, which is what I'm trying to do now. Okay, what's that? Sorry. Oh, Brian McFarlane. Oh, yeah. So to be honest, I don't watch a lot of YouTube anymore, Rally. But I have caught some of Unbiased on the Fence material. I do like him. Brian McFarlane, Life Matrix. I know it. I know the name, so I'm sure I've come across it and watched it in the past. I haven't watched it for a long time, I must admit. But I'm pretty sure I am subscribed. Well, that's not to say I'm still subscribed. I mean, every time there's a shift, I go into YouTube and I'll find I've been subscribed to gaming channels and all sorts of channels I would never in a million years have subscribed to. So who knows who I'm subscribed to at the moment. But I know I'm still subscribed to Unbiased on the Fence, or at least I was a couple of days ago. Okay, so the next one is depression. After bargaining, our attention moves squarely into the present. Empty feelings present themselves, and grief enters our lives on a deeper level, deeper than we ever imagined. This depressive stage feels as though it will last forever. It's important to understand that this depression is not a sign of mental illness. It is the appropriate response to a great loss. We withdraw from life, left in a fog of intense sadness, wondering perhaps if there is any point in going on alone. Why go on at all? Depression after a loss is too often seen as unnatural, a state to be fixed, something to snap out of. The first question to ask yourself is whether or not the situation you're in is actually depressing. The loss of a loved one is a very depressing situation, and depression is a normal and appropriate response. To not experience depression after a loved one dies would be unusual. When a loss fully settles in your soul, the realization that your loved one didn't get better this time and is not coming back is understandably depressing. If grief is a process of healing, then depression is one of the many necessary steps along the way. Now, for me, the depression stage was the stage between the bargaining stage, wanting to fix everything, and the acceptance stage of simply experiencing. The depression stage was when I finally got to realise and understand that I can't fix everything, that I can't make everything go back to the comfortable reality I knew before, that I can't fix the earth, and I can't do anything to change anybody else, because I can only change myself, and other people can only change themselves. That was the depression stage. It was the realisation that I had to work on myself, not other people. But that by working on myself, I would indirectly, unintentionally, and not deliberately also help other people. Because you lead by example. As people see you change, they start to reconsider themselves as well and how they feel about life. Telling them you need to change how you look at life isn't going to work. But simply showing them that works. And it's depressing. It's depressing to realise that we're not going to go back to the way things were. We can't fix everything straight away. That no matter what happens, our reality is going to be fundamentally different to what it always was before. Whether you believe your earth's going to go down a negative path or go to a utopia, regardless, it's not going to be the same. Fundamental changes are going to occur, and that's depressing. So, the depression stage, in my experience, doesn't last as long in the awakening process as like the anger stage tends to do. But again, it varies from individual to individual. I remember when I got very ill, that the depression stage, because when you get a chronic illness as well, that impacts your life, you go through exactly the same stages of grief. Because you're grieving for your dreams. The life you expected to live has suddenly the rug has been drawn out from under your feet. That's not going to happen. And you go through every stage of grief. And the depression stage for me lasted a very long time. And so I understand how depression can get, how bad it can get. And one of the big problems we have in the Western world is there is not enough support. What we do is we go to a doctor and get a pill. But that doesn't deal with what's causing the depression, and it prolongs that stage of the grieving process. If I had known back then that what I was feeling was simply a part of the grieving process I was going through, I would have been able to manage it much better. But nobody told me that. I didn't know that. And all I knew was I was depressed. And I went and got a pill to help me. And it does help. But it prolongs it. The same way as taking paracetamol, or I'm not sure what the American term for it, prolongs your illness. It helps with the symptom, but it prolongs the illness, because paracetamol restricts your liver glutathione, which is absolutely vital for an effective immune response. So you start getting a runny nose and a small cold, you go to the chemist or the pharmacy, you get a product with paracetamol in it. They almost all have paracetamol in it. And yes, you feel better. It stops the symptoms. It reduces the symptoms. But your cold may have lasted 1 day, maybe 2 days, now will last 1 week, maybe 2 weeks, because you have crippled your body's response to dealing with the infection. And of course, you could argue, oh, conspiracy theory here, money, repeat sales, and you'd probably be absolutely right. But if you don't know that, you're going to carry on doing it. And you know, all you can do is offer that information to people. They can research it themselves and make choices. It's up to them. But the depression stage, like any stage of depression in your life, for whatever reason, medicating on its own without dealing with what is going on to cause that depression is not the answer. And I would argue that medicating is the very last port of call, because there are so many other things that can cause depression. Diet, for example. Okay, but in terms of the awakening, the depression stage is pretty horrible, but it's a necessary stage. And if you're in it, if you're feeling that way, that nothing you can do is ever going to help, is never going to change, never going to save anybody, that's fine, because this is a stage of the grieving process, and just remember that you need to get through this stage. What you must not do is allow it to prolong longer than necessary. So the last stage, and let me just check if there's any comments. Yeah, she's my friend, Valley, Michelle's opinion channel. Yeah, she's on Discord. Thank you. Oh, Secret always, I told him. Okay, so acceptance. The last stage. And this is the stage that I'm at now in my awakening process. And it's a wonderful stage. It's a wonderful stage to be in. So acceptance is often confused with the notion of being all right or okay with what has happened. This is not the case. Most people don't ever feel okay or all right about the loss of a loved one. And that's true. I don't feel it's great that I've lost my entire reality. But I've accepted it. This stage is about accepting the reality that our loved one is physically gone and recognizing that this new reality is the permanent reality. Now, in terms of the awakening, I would question that in a sec. We will never like this reality or make it okay, but eventually we accept it. We learn to live with it. It is the new norm with which we must learn to live. We must try to live now in a world where our loved one is missing. In resisting this new norm, at first many people want to maintain life as it was before a loved one died. In time, through bits and pieces of acceptance, however, we see that we cannot maintain the past intact. It has forever changed, and we must readjust. We must learn to recognise roles, reassign them to others, or take them on ourselves. Finding acceptance may be just having more good days than bad ones. As we begin to live again and enjoy our life, we often feel that in doing so we are betraying our loved one. We can never replace what has been lost, but we can make new connections, new meaningful relationships, new interdependencies. Instead of denying our feelings, we listen to our needs. We move, we change, we grow, we evolve. We may start to reach out to others and become involved in their lives. We invest in our friendships and in our relationship with ourselves. We begin to live again, but we cannot do so until we have given grief its time. Hold on, my battery's low. Sorry about that, it disconnected. Okay, so the acceptance stage in terms of the awakening is when you simply accept your reality as it is and you accept whatever is going to morph into. In terms of the Mandela effect and understanding the effect of consciousness on our reality, now, that is where I question where it said that this new reality is the permanent reality. Remember, this is about grief of a lost one. So it's a specific example it's talking about. In terms of the awakening, our reality is never permanent. It's constantly changing, constantly morphing through a variety of mechanisms, including our thoughts and emotions. It says we will never like this reality or make it okay. Now, there, in terms of the awakening, I disagree because I love this new reality. I love the fact that it's not as it was before, that I now have a greater understanding of how my thoughts can affect my physical reality. I consider it to be an empowering process. I consider it to be a liberating process. To be absolutely sure that I am not me, that this is simply an avatar, a child version of me, is comforting. It's liberating, it's empowering, it's all of these good words. But we must learn to live in this new reality. Our perception of our reality, we must learn to adjust to it. We must learn to accept what has gone on before. And this is probably the hardest part for most people, of accepting what has happened before and accepting what has happened now without an emotional attachment. Because most people are so angry and they are trying to be angry at others so they don't have to realize they're really angry at themselves. And the people they can't really vent at, the people who have lived before us. So to accept what has happened before and accept what is happening now doesn't mean to think it's okay, but it's to accept that this is our reality and that the only way we're going to change it, the only way we're going to make the future better, is to change ourselves, not other people. Or at least, let me rephrase what I said before. We can't go around trying to change other people. We can only try and change ourselves, and then that will have a knock-on effect and change them. The acceptance stage is when you get to the point where you start to love your life again. When you start to realize you're here to experience your life. That going through life thinking, I wish I'd done that, I wish I'd done this, I wish I was living there, I wish I would live in there, I wish I could have more holidays, I wish I could have more cars or more material possessions, or I wish, I want. That's not accepting. Accepting who you are today, what your life is like today, and being grateful for what you have. Not being angry about what you perceive you don't have. That's acceptance. You are here to experience. And when you go through life not realizing that you're having really good experiences every minute of every day, that's a problem. Regardless of where you live, regardless of what your physical reality is like, regardless of whether you're living in a mud hut without electricity or running water, or living in a $1 million mansion with every material possession you could want, you are having an incredible experience every minute of every day. An experience you couldn't have otherwise unless you were living in these things that we call human beings. You are here to experience your life, every aspect of it, and to enjoy it, and to appreciate it, and to be grateful. And so many people, they get trapped into this mindset of not being grateful, of not appreciating. They focus only on what they don't have or what they perceive to be wrong in the world rather than what they perceive to be right in the world. And this relates back to the videos I was talking about at the beginning of this. I forgot what they were called. The Middle Ground YouTube series. The whole idea is to bring people together to appreciate what they have in common, what is good, what is they agree on, rather than focusing on what they disagree on or what they perceive to be bad on the other side. And again, if you know anything about the scientific understanding now of the effect of our thoughts and emotions on our physical reality, you would understand why this filling yourself every minute of every day with an acceptance and a joy and an appreciation affects the physical reality around you in fundamental ways. Ways that will be beneficial to your health, your physical health, and your emotional health, and your spiritual health. Body, mind, spirit. Oh good, my Amazon package is out for delivery. This is sun cream I've bought, by the way, because it's been so hot here. And although it's overcast today, and I won't use like normal sun creams because of what's in them. So I've succumbed to ordering some organic version of sunscreen. I don't normally use sunscreen because I live in Britain, and usually by the time you actually go and buy some sunscreen, the summer's over anyway. So I've been putting it off. What's the point? By the time it gets here, it'll be cloudy again. But this weather seems to be going on, so I have actually eventually got some. And that's another thing. You do need to wear sunscreen now because of the UVC levels, even if for nothing else. But just make sure you wear good sunscreen, not the chemical processed pharmaceutical versions most people wear. Just do your research as to what's in those before you put them on your skin. Okay, so the acceptance stage is where we're heading. And this applies, you can be in the acceptance stage, remember, of one aspect, and in the anger or bargaining or depression stage on other aspects of your awakening process. So you can be in different stages simultaneously on different topics. But the goal is to get to the acceptance stage on all of them. To let go of your anger, to process it, to understand where it's coming from and heal that so you can let it go. Let go of your hatred. Understand the negativity involved in that and the destruction that that's doing. Let it go. Learn to love. If you're hating other people, it's because you're really hating yourself. Now, you may think that's bizarre to say that, but it's absolutely true. Because if you truly loved yourself, every aspect of yourself, you would recognize that there are aspects of yourself in all of these other people that you're hating. But if you love those aspects in you, how can you hate them in others? So you then learn to love them as well. That doesn't mean to let them get away with doing harmful and destructive behaviour, that to think that that's okay, that that's acceptable. But it means to have understanding. Because you have to have understanding, because they have had a different life experience to you. They have been brought up in a different culture with different dogmatic beliefs drilled into them from childhood. They perceive life and have had different experiences to you. They are victims of programming just like you are. And that's where you get to the acceptance part and then the universal unconditional loving part. Because you can't be otherwise if you accept that, if you understand that. You can't feel any way. Okay, so I think that's it for this video. Yeah, please, Sika. That would be great. Sika asked if she wants her to drop an invite link to Flame. Yes, please. It does. Sika said, acceptance is the best part for me. It truly brings peace. And it does. It brings peace. You accept whatever happens. You don't look to yourself and think, what have I done wrong? For example, the flame has been quiet at the moment for a while, and that's fine. It goes They always go through these periods. And when I meditate on it, what I see is the members of the flame, they're still attached energetically to the flame, which I perceive in my meditation space as a purple flame. They're still attached via the energetic cause, but they're all looking away from the flame. Some are looking at books, some are looking at their screens, some are busy with their lives, they're all distracted, and that's fine. And it's a cycle that it goes through, and it's a natural cycle. and they will come back. That's part and parcel of it. But some people are perceiving it and looking at themselves, what have I done wrong? It's a bit like when your parents get divorced and you look at yourself, what did I do wrong? You did nothing wrong. Nothing at all. Just accept it. And if they don't come back, you accept that as well. Because you know that they are doing what they need to do and you love them. You're happy for them. You accept your reality as it is. And your reality will change. New people will come into your reality. Old people will leave. Sometimes the old ones will come back later, sometimes they won't. That's fine. Accept it because you love them. Even if you never speak to them again, you still love them. Thanks, Seeker. Thank you. Oh, Alison Cole's got a latest video out. I'll go and watch that myself. Alison Cole on World Regression Day, she did a regression and it was incredible for me. I went down like that, and which I don't do all the time for everybody, and I had such a profound, vivid, lucid experience that taught me so much about myself and about Gaia and who and what I am. It fundamentally changed my perceptions, and she's amazing. She's absolutely amazing. I'm not saying I agree with everything she comes out with, or I think it's true for everybody what she comes out with, but her actual regression on World Regression Day was amazing. And the same with Pamela Arolan. Both of those regressions are on their respective YouTube channels, so I would definitely recommend people doing those. But remember, you have to be in a place where you are happy to learn about yourself, sometimes unpleasant truths, and you're happy to experience that. If you're not, then it doesn't matter if you watch it or not. It's not going to do anything for you. So you have to be in the right frame of mind in order to experience what you could potentially experience. So yeah, if you think that's you, then I would definitely recommend going and doing those meditations. And if you're sniggering to yourself at the moment thinking, meditations, this new age crap, I understand what you're saying. I understand how you're feeling. I used to think and feel exactly the same way until I started to meditate. And I can't recommend it highly enough. It will make such a difference to how you feel about yourself and therefore about your world and your life. And I would recommend, if you can, somehow doing group meditations, because it is a very different experience to individual meditating. At least I have found that. There is something about being energetically connected to a large group of people or a group of people and all meditating at the same time, doing the same meditation. It really does make a difference. So we do group meditations in Flame, and Seeker's just put the invite link into chat. Now Flame is a section, a server, which is another word for a section of an online chat forum called Discord. Discord was originally and is used largely by gamers, but it's used by lots of different communities as well. And in the Flame server on Discord, which is free and it's a chat service, we get to know each other and we help each other, we support each other emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, in every way. And we work together to help each other along our respective individualized paths. Part of that is group meditations. Now, it is free. When you click the invite link, you will be taken to a site. It will ask you either download the app if you're on a computer, or access it via the browser. Either's good. If you're on a device like a mobile, smartphone, or a tablet, I think you'll have to download the app. And again, it's either's fine. And if you do join Flame, I look forward to speaking to you there. And just ask anyone who I am, and people will know who I am, because people change their usernames all the time, but people know who I am there. So you just got to ask, and they'll say who I am. And if you like this video, please like it on YouTube. It does make a big difference, especially for small channels. And please remember to share it if you think it's going to be helpful to others. And also subscribe. Okay, so thank you for coming. Thank you for watching. And I will see you again soon. And I'm going to have to think of a name for this video series. So probably Male's Insights or something like that. Anyway, speak to you soon. Bye.